good evening to those who are joining from India, and whatever is appropriate timely greetings to whoever is joining from different places around the globe. Everyone knows the weekday sequence, but what is the secret behind this weekday sequence? That is our topic today. Before I begin, I need to acknowledge help from many individuals, but I'll limit myself to those individuals who were in some fashion connected with today's subject. So what you see in the picture, this picture may be 3-year old uh, in Pune, okay, India. And the person in the middle, if you can see my cursor right here, is Shri Suhas Gurjar. He's a brilliant engineer, closely connected with one of the oldest visual astronomy club of India, Ayurveda, Jyotirvidya Parisanstha, not Ayurveda, Jyotirvidya Parisanstha in Pune, and a man with many expert hats, okay, has traveled around the world. He was very instrumental when I started studying this subject. This goes back more than 10 plus years. I can't even exactly remember the timing. And I would like to acknowledge Ashay Gune, my other good friend, who introduced me to Suhas Gurjar. And the other, he's not in the picture, by the way. One more person is Sudarshan Bharadwaj. Number of you who are familiar with the Bharat Rakshak Forum, BRF, would know that name. Again, this friendship and collaboration goes back to more than 10 plus years. These individuals helped me in fill in the blanks on many different aspects of this puzzle of the origin, the antiquity of this weekday sequence. Okay, so with that, let me move on to the next one. In case you are wondering who are these other individuals, well, that's me here, then my wife Ashwini, our other friend. And this one is also another wonderful person to know, Sri Sanjay Dapkeji. Today, that's not the subject, so I'll not go into it. But he is doing some very fascinating things in India and throughout India. But about him and his work some other day. So let's get into our today's subject. I'm going to do this in two parts. The first part, I want to talk about all the fluff. So keep that in mind. It's the fluff. But we must, this is like a Purva Paksha. We need to know the fluff before we can talk the truth. Okay, so then only people understand the context, and it helps remember, or it helps us appreciate that wow factor. Okay, so let's begin. Vedic weekday names, what are they? And if I'm giving a talk to a largely Indian audience, some people may just laugh at this. I'm saying, oh, there is a need to tell this? Everyone knows it. When I was doing this, in fact, yesterday I was speaking at a gala dinner cocktail party. And I was talking, by the way, on the antiquity of Indian civilization. Okay. But it's surprising that when I asked somebody on the sidelines to tell me the names of Vedic weekdays, they could not necessarily recall because they started saying Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I said, what about the Vedic names, the Hindu names? Well, they are here. So just to make sure everyone is on the same page. Somwar, Mangalwar in Hindi, Budhwar, Brihaspatiwar, Guruwar or Brihaspatiwar, Shukrawar, Shaniwar, Raviwar. Or in Marathi, Somwar, Mangalwar, there is a R in it, Budhwar, Guruwar, Shukrawar, Shaniwar, Raviwar. And the corresponding graha is at the top. Chandra or Soma, that's where Somwar comes. Mangal or Bhauma, or there are many other names, Angaraka and whatnot. That's where the Mangalwar, Budhwar, Guruwar, Shukrawar, Shaniwar, Raviwar. So people are going to wonder, what's big deal about this? Everyone knows that's the case everywhere around the world. And guys, that's the puzzle. Okay, that's the puzzle. So if we look at the obvious pattern of this weekday sequence, the etymology, the names in the east direction. When I say east direction, starting with India at the center, and it is for a reason, by the way. So you start with the Vedic days and Vedic deities, Vedic Devata. Now, this is a Vedic tradition that many things get associated, anything such as a day gets associated with a Devata. So, Ravivar connected with the Surya or Ravi, Somvar with the Chandra or Soma or Indu, Mangalvar with the Mangal, Bhauma, Angaraka, and so on. That's just known. I told you that on the previous page. But now let's go in the eastward direction to Mongolia, to Myanmar, okay, to Cambodia, to Philippines, to Vietnam, to Thailand, to different islands of Indonesia, Java, Bali. What do you find? If you just spend 30 seconds, you will know these are basically the Vedic days names. The obvious Eastern pattern, okay? No surprises here. Now, what is the Western backstory? Okay, we will look at what the story is, but at least what we are told is typically this sequence that everyone in an English medium in India, and most of them are in English medium these days, I hear, they would know Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now, Monday, Saturday, Sunday is kind of obvious, but some people would wonder what's the deal with this Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, and how do they connect with Mangalwar, Budwar, Guruwar? Okay, so let's see the Western backstory. The stuff that we are not told. So let's start with the extremely left that everyone is familiar with, the English weekdays, right? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. How many of you can, without blinking an eye, can connect those with the Vedic days? I'm sure not many. But that's the journey. So if you look at the Vedic days and the Vedic deities, and I'm again, remember, I'm talking the fluff, which is to say, you can take this for now as just a conjecture, okay? Because I have not shown the evidence other than, of course, the etymological evidence which I'm showing. So Vedic deities with the migration, out of India migration, transferred to Greek deities, no, and then to Roman deities, okay? So Roman took from Greek, Greek took from the Vedic guys. Now, Roman deities, when you look at it and look at the Latin names, Roman names, which are the same there, you can start seeing the connection with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Not everything, but for most part, like Venus and Friday and Wednesday and Friday and whatnot. But many of you may not be even aware of the Greek devatas. And one of the reason is when Christianity came into being, one of the thing it did many things. One of the thing it did is destroyed the Greek civilization. Essentially, Joseph Campbell talks beautifully about it. It just flattened the Greek civilization. Okay, and now after 1500 years, they finally felt, oh my God, we don't have any roots, and then they started looking for these Greek roots as the roots of their original religion and so on. That's a different story. But that's why you may not everyone here would be easily familiar with the Greek deities. But if you look at Roman names, Latin names, they sound familiar. You can connect them with the weekday names. But from the Rome all the way to say England, how was that journey? That journey was through the Germanic deities or devata, and there is an influence of the Scandinavia, the Nordic. Okay, and that's where you see these middle names, the Tivas, the Woden, the Thor, the Frigge, okay, which are superimposition or transformations of the Roman deities, okay, previously to Greek deities, previously to Vedic deities, on basically the current weekdays that we know. That's why we have that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but their origin, you can perfectly connect them to Mangalwar, Budwar, Guruwar, Shukrawar, and so on. So that's what we use, okay? But there is a deep connection that goes back to the Vedic culture, okay? And if you look at in terms of a geographical migration, that's how in picture it will look like. Still, this does not tell you the timely migration, okay? How old is this thing? And we are going to look at that also. So if you have to summarize this, I'll say the weekdays are common across the world. I don't have to say that. You can go to Wikipedia and spend an hour or two just going through the weekday sequence and look at every place in the world, every place. You are going to find that it is common across the world. both in etymology, like the way they are named, but something very important, the way the sequence is stated. So, for example, if we start with, say, Saturday, so Saturday, why Sunday comes after Saturday, Monday comes after Sunday? It's not very clear why that sequence exists, but we do know that both etymology and the peculiar sequence, it's common across the world. Okay, so that's our baseline, that's our Purva Paksha. So what do we summarize from this? A common etymology and sequence, which means a common origin. The origin place of the weekday sequence is the origin of the weekdays, and the creator of the weekdays, whatever that culture, whatever that individual, whoever that is also the defining culture of the time, the measurements. Okay, so the origin can only be the place where a solid documented logic exists, and it also corroborates all the conditions necessary. So now the question is, what are those conditions that are necessary for any culture, any civilization, any individual to come up with this unique sequence? These are the 5 conditions. First, we have to have an existence of sophisticated visual astronomy. Second, very important, actually, all of them are important. They are necessary, guys. Without that, the weekday sequence and the etymology that we have is not possible. Stable sunrise times, which in principle saying there has to be a existence of a sophisticated visual equatorial astronomy. We also need to have a tradition of assigning deities to time units such as hour, day, month, or year. A coherent logic for the sequence that we see, because not everyone will able to make a sense out of it. And I'm going to put one suspense there, the 5th one. And when we get there, we'll find it. But it's also a must to explain the current etymology and the current sequence. Now, how have people dealt with this? This is very funny. Okay, so we are going back to say 130 years ago to 1893. This is one book written by Sir Oliver Lodge. And in explaining this peculiar sequence, he drew a diagram like this. I mean, many people have done this. So he might have just borrowed the diagram from someone. But at that time, what they know, he said, well, from Ptolemy's time, people know there was some confusion in the Western Europe, but for most part, they knew Saturn is the slowest planet. And if you look at all the visible planets, including sun, moon in the sky, the visible celestial bodies, the moving celestial bodies up to the moon, you can arrange them in that sequence. And then you can understand, okay, what is that sequence. So start with Saturn, skip to, go to the next celestial body, so that's Sunday, then skip to again, go to the next celestial body, that's Monday, skip to, go to the next celestial body, that's Mangalwar, and Budhwar and Gurwar and Shukrawar, and back to Shaniwar. But remember, what all that he has done is he has taken already known sequence and just tried to explain how you might remember it, how you may understand it in a sense of mnemonics. This does not explain the principle behind this peculiar sequence. Now, this is funny. Do you know why this is funny? Because if you have heard the name Dharampal, the beautiful tree and the 5 volumes that he has written, and I would encourage you to read them, he describes a very consistent phenomenon. When the British officers were in India and they were taking stuff from India or observing stuff and writing about it, they make a peculiar observation. And they're not completely wrong, but it's worth noting that observation. They said the challenge or the problem with Indians is they know how to apply something from their ancient wisdom, but they are not aware of the principles behind it. Now, I just smiled at it because you know what? That's exactly what Sir Oliver Lodge is doing there. Okay, he has not explained the principles. He has simply shown how to remember it. It's like a mnemonics, how to describe it. Okay, but why that peculiar sequence? Why skip to? That is not given. Okay. Now let's look at another thing. If you ask, and you might have seen this in social media or even otherwise, you can go to Wikipedia or the academia. Okay. Okay, so obviously this is a surprise, big surprise. Like, why the same etymology, background, same sequence around the world, and still we are clueless as to where this originated, when did it originated? So, if you ask the academic, what are you going to get? Or even Wikipedia. First thing, they will just laugh at you, which means they don't have to answer. Really, it means they don't know the answer. But typically, what the internal mind goes like this: I don't know exactly, but hey, who else? Has to be Greeks, right? That's the answer we get for everyone. Then you ask the question, well, where is the evidence? Then they go silent, or again you will hear okay. Or sometime when you push them further, even you can see that on the Wikipedia, they say, well, the Greeks might have got it from Babylonians, or Babylonians got it from Greek and they gave it back to Greeks. All kinds of funny answers you will get. And then you ask the question, what is the evidence with Babylonians, or when was that? Oh, Babylonians were around 2500 BC. Fine. What is the evidence? There is no evidence. What about Sumerians? Because they will say Babylonians got it from Sumerians. What is the evidence? No evidence. What's that problem here? Okay. Now it's a time for us to laugh at those kind of answers. But academia and social media platforms like Wikipedia want us to believe that the Greeks in their times, 500 BC, which is very recent when you look at the antiquity of Indian civilization, are thinking of a flat earth. That's how they visualize the world, at least the known world, you can say, known world to them in 500 BC. A flat world, not because of the map, I'm just saying. They truly believed in many ways, although there were few Greek individuals who thought of a spherical earth. Okay, there were brilliant exceptions. But look at India. Okay, the description of India to them is one river, Indus, the Sindhu. Okay, and then Nile, the Libya is like Africa, and so on. And of course, we don't find much evidence from Babylonians or Sumerians for any of this. Actually, none, as far as the weekday sequence goes. So, what the world wants us to believe, based on zero evidence, is that this Greek, Babylonia, Sumerian, hey, pick your, yeah, I have given you three choices. Pick one. It has to be, right? Who else? Okay. Now let's look at the real deal. So, part two. Now, whereas the academia and likes of Wikipedia are stuck into very dogmatic knowledge that was created in a very dogmatic fashion in last 300, 400, 500 years, look at what the Queen Frederica of the Greece has to say. Okay, she says, you are fortunate, referring to Indians, you are fortunate to inherit such knowledge. I envy you. While Greece is the country of my birth, India is the country of my soul. And those of you who have studied Upanishad, you know, like the around the Atma, it's not touched by anything, but Atma with it is also carries the memories, the past memories into the next birth, right? Maybe she was lucky to tap into those memories and she could relate to that. But the country of her Atma, she's saying, is India, although physically she may be born in Greece. Let's quickly get to the 5 things that I mentioned. Okay. These are the necessary conditions for us to find the place for the origin of the weekday etymology and weekday sequence. Number 1, sophisticated astronomy, or in a common sense language, you got to have chops. If you have heard that expression, you got to have a talent, you got to have a skill, you got to have a sophistication, you got to have a technology. Without that, this peculiar weekday sequence is impossible. So, number 1, sophisticated astronomy. Now, to have a sophisticated astronomy, you have to have a sophisticated understanding of your Earth. Now, I told you about the flat earthers. Now, I'm going to take you to the spherical earthers. Okay. Bhugoladhyay Surya Siddhanta says, Sarvatraiva Mahi Gole Swasthanam Uparistitam Manyate Khe Yato Golas Tasya Kva Urdhva Kva Vapyada. Thus, everywhere on the terrestrial globe, people suppose their own place higher than others, of course, yet this globe is in space where there is no above, not below. So, Surya Siddhanta guys knew the spherical earth and, of course, the sphere, the celestial sphere above that. Okay. And so it's very important. And I'm going to show you why. Because remember our second requirement, not just of sophisticated astronomy, but equatorial astronomy. Now, just the second question you would understand is that's fine, but now everyone knows the Earth is spherical. So the question is, how long ago the Surya Siddhanta folks knew of the spherical Earth and this entire spherical geometry that is required? Well, I will leave it to you to decide, but what I will tell you, based on objective, scientific, empirical, objectively testable research, what we know from Surya Siddhanta, for example, and not just Surya Siddhanta, by the way, is that the history of ancient Indian astronomy goes back to at least, I'm using the word, 40,000 years. And look at some of these, and you have watched my talk on Surya Siddhanta, some of you at least. So right from in fact, the last update that was made to Surya Siddhanta was 1500 years ago. But if you go back before that, we have updates to Surya Siddhanta going back to 38,000 BCE. And it's not only Surya Siddhanta. In fact, if you look at 12,000 years, two pole stars, you see the evidence of that also in the Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana, which also happened in 12,000 BC. Or if you go to Maitrayani Upanishad, you will see the reference to the conditions changing in the sky, but the condition changing on the ground. And they can be matched, corroborated, objectively tested again for 34,000 BC, 34,000 BC. And the longitudes of Agastya. So we have in terms of antiquity, I'm not saying a specific year when they figured out it's a spherical one. Guess what? The way the latitude of Agastya is mentioned, that can be matched for 38,000 BCE, you won't even talk of a latitude unless you have understanding of a spherical Earth and spherical celestial sphere. Okay, but I talked enough about the sophistication. Let's go to the next one. 2. Stable sunrise. In a simple language, you need an equator to even qualify. You have to look at the places where equator exists, as simple as that. Or a tradition where they may be living somewhere, but they were making the measurements from the equator. Can you think of one? Take Aryabhatiya, for example. Okay, just the 4 shlok from Aryabhatiya that I have pulled here, and I have highlighted with the location of Lanka. Now we are talking Lanka, we are talking Ravana's Lanka. Please keep in mind, we are not necessarily talking of a Sri Lanka, although Sri Lanka can be part of Ravana's kingdom. That's a different story. But we are talking of a astronomy point of view, what the Lanka is, which was also Ravana's Lanka or could be Ravana's Lanka. That point is defined as 0 latitude and 0 longitude. Okay, that place is here. So Aryabhatiya very clearly talks about the importance of Lanka, not just once, multiple times, and more than what I have shown here. But is this limited to Aryabhatiya? Not at all. If you look at Surya Siddhanta, again, this verse from the 12th chapter and the 3-4 additional verses from this chapter. This is what me and my co-researcher, Mrs. Rupa Bhattiji, we presented at Oxford, showing that these references, these updates to Surya Siddhanta take us back to 12,000 BC. This is what we presented at Oxford conference a few years ago, I think 3-4 years ago. Okay. Surya Siddhanta talks about this place, Meror Ubhayato Madhye Dhruvatare Navastite Niraksha Desha Sausthanam Ubhaye Kshitija Shreya. If you watch this from a Niraksha place, Niraksha Desh, what is Niraksha Desh? Equatorial location. Then you are going to find the Dhruva points at the horizon on both sides, and also the Dhruva stars, if they exist at that time, also around that horizon. That's what this is saying. This reference combined with others takes us to 12,000 BC. Okay, so equatorial astronomy, that's the fundamental of Indian astronomy. And they also knew when they made measurements from other locations such as Ujjain or Varanasi or Kurukshetra, how to make corrections so that their readings are accurate or adjusted for equatorial coordinates if required. Okay, so I just already mentioned that Ramayana. So Surya Siddhanta talks of a time of an update from 12,000 BC. Ramayana corroborates that. Ramayana says yes. So what Surya Siddhanta is saying, Ramayana is not saying that, but it's saying whatever is claimed in Surya Siddhanta, updated in Surya Siddhanta, is also shown also can be shown with Ramayana evidence, like a Brahma Rashi as a pole star, or Agastya as a pole star in the south. Brahma Rashi or Vishuddhasya Shuddhasya Paramarshya Archishmantah Prakashante Dhruvam Sarve Pradakshinam. Or when Sugriva tells the southern Vanara party, you have to go all the way to the southern tip of India before you can see Agastya. Why? Because Agastya has become a pole star, is close to the pole point at the time of Ramayana. Okay. So I'm just giving you the idea of a sophisticated astronomy, but also the equatorial astronomy. Now let's get to the battle of planetary models, because remember the names of the graha or the planets loosely translated as a graha. Graha is a Sanskrit word, planets is a Greek word. Okay, planet means wanderers. So in directionally it's a correct, but there is slight difference. Okay, so what's the difference between the Bharati and a Greek astronomy? Now, if you ask, now that professor is no longer around, he passed away a few years ago, Professor David Pingree. But I mean, we just say, okay, from where? The professor of exact sciences, Brown University, one of the Ivy League schools. And we said, well, okay, let's do the obeisances. Whatever he's saying must be correct. That is with what? With a great reverence and andhashraddha. We are going to listen to them. What does he say? I mean, his whole thesis was an agenda to prove that everything came from Greece to India. But did it really? Okay. I mean, go to the evidence to see it for yourself. While the Greek used the model on the left that you see is a Greek model, this is Ptolemy's model going back 2000 years. It's a very, I mean, we can give a credit to Ptolemy considering the dark age that the Western Europe was in. But it's an extremely crude model, extremely inaccurate by our standards today, I'm talking, and very cumbersome to use with that 60 units. And against that, compare a Indian model, which is much, much older than the Greek models, thousands and thousands of years, does not have to only limit to geometrical formulations to know the thing. Actually, they have a mathematical formulations to estimate the positions, and uses a very curious number of the astronomy radius, you can call it, of 3438. In fact, when the Western Europe came in contact with India and the Surya Siddhanta and Aryabhatiya astronomy text, initially they were not understanding. It took them a very long time to understand why the very curious, very random sounding number 3438. Even to many Indians will not able to describe it. But it's a fascinating, curious, very articulate number. Okay, and I'm not going to spend time on that. But now what I'm referring to here is the specific aspect of astronomy. Now, those of you who know a little bit of math and think of the equatorial circumference, if you want to calculate that and so on, okay, that number will start making sense. What is the circumference of the Earth at the equator? Go to Wikipedia. Okay, you will trust that, right? Blindly, you can trust that with Andhashraddha. Andhashraddha, remember that. It's 21,600 nautical miles. Where do they come from? That's not today's subject, but it comes from, it's based on the fundamentals of ancient Indian astronomy. Ancient Indian astronomy combined the pragmatism, which is what? The natural resolution, of a naked eye, which is 1 arc minute, and as they are as they're making the observations, just even without telescopes, that is the limit of natural eye resolution. That's why they selected this, and that's why if you do backwards using the 2 pi r formula, then you know why they chose radius as 3438. How old is this? I told you how far back we can go with Surya Siddhanta. Now you're going to, some of you, those who are scared of math, say, my God, you know what? Is this really true? And what now? 3438 and all of this? Okay, don't be scared. There is a more scary stuff here. No, I'm going to make it fun. What you see on the left side is, you will just laugh at it, just singing that, right? Or saying it. It's like maki, baki, faki, dhaki, kaki, aki. You're saying, what's this? What the hell is this going on? But what if I tell you, if you understand Indian astronomy, okay, and this is not a simple stuff, guys, it requires tapasya. That particular verse there that you see 4 lines is actually transform into sign tables on the right. And the first three columns tell you this is a verse from Aryabhatiya, how those sign values come, and its comparison with the modern sign values. The Western astronomy developed when finally they came in contact with Indian texts such as Surya Siddhanta and Aryabhatiya. Until then, they had chords. They did not have sign values. Okay, that's another subject again. Third, necessary requirement, tradition of assigning deities. Anything in India, okay, in terms of time, but even otherwise, time unit is assigned a deity. Like nakshatras, 27 nakshatras used for timekeeping. Okay, the position of the moon, position of the sun, position of the planet. Every nakshatra has a deity, devata. Okay, and I'm just giving you one example. It's there in 1,000 different places within ancient Indian narratives. Okay, in the Brahmanas, in the Samhitas, everywhere. Astronomy texts, Puranas, go anywhere. What about the years? Not just nakshatras, the year. So we have a Samvatsara, Parivatsara, Idavatsara, Anuvatsara, Idavatsara. They also have a Devata. And the last one, again, Devatas for everything, but I'm just showing you just few illustrations here. The last one, Tithi, which is what? Nothing but the lunar day, also has a Devata. Okay, so Pratipada, Surya is the Devata. For Dvitiya, Chandra is the Devata. For Tritiya, Mars is the Devata, and so on. Do you see something fascinating there, guys? I'll just leave it to you at that. The lunar day, and just look at the sequence, by the way. Okay, we'll just leave it at that for now. And of course, because there are more tithis, 15 tithis, the tithis are also repeated, or rather the devatas are repeated for certain tithis. But it's very interesting, very obvious to look at the Pratipada, Dvitiya, Tritiya, Chaturthi, and so on. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. So we got the third condition done. The fourth condition, a coherent logic. Okay, and what do we need for that logic? We need a lot of things, but let's cut to the chase. Okay, groovy baby. Where is the evidence? Pratyaksha. The highest emphasis in Indian civilization is on a pratyaksha. Sense perception, okay, but it can be through instruments. There are 5 senses, okay. Pratyaksha. Where is the evidence? You cannot talk about something unless you have evidence. I mean, you can talk about it, but you cannot claim it, okay, to be that is the case. You need evidence to establish the validity of something. Now, do we have evidence? Yes, we do. And just like I showed you that 4 lines from Aryabhatiya, unless you have done tapasya in a given subject, in this case astronomy, but that's true for any subject, Ayurveda and yoga and whatnot, you will not understand what is being said. These 2 lines, one shloka, is giving away the whole secrets of the etymology and that peculiar sequence of the weekdays in Surya Siddhanta. Okay, just a quick translation. Starting from the Saturn downward, the 4th graha is called the Lord. Now, Lord we can call a Pati, okay, or Devata of the day. The graha starting from the Saturn successively downwards in their speed, going from slow to fast, are the lords of the hour or Devata of the hour. Essentially, it's saying every hour, Hora, and I'm going to tell you more about that, has a Devata. Okay, what are those Devatas? These 7 grahas. So it's a Hora Pati. And in a peculiar fashion, if it matches with the beginning of the day, that is how we get the name for the day, just like Nakshatra of the day or Tithi of the day. Okay, that Horapati becomes the Dinapati. It's more clearly even explained. Yeah, before that, enjoy the moment. Okay, this is revealing of a secret, the validation, bringing it together. That is brought together even more beautifully in Aryabhatiya. But quickly, just what Surya Siddhanta is saying is this. First column, you organize these graha from slowest to the fastest. And then, remember, 24 hours in the day. Where does the hour comes from? Hours comes from Hora. That's what academics will tell you. Then you ask them, where does Hora comes from? And they're saying, well, guess what? Where else? Greek, right? Well, yeah. But where did Greek got it from? Varahamir explains that hora came from ahoratra. So just like in mnemonics, you make a short form, right? Weeks, and then you just say WK, something like this. Ahoratra, ahoratra, aho is a day, ratra is a night, and the whole is 24 hours. You just split some words, take the middle word of hora, and that's how it came from. That's what Varahamir says, anyways. So now you assign those 24 hours, that is a horapati, okay, to each of these graha. So you go like this in this table, 7, then again you repeat, just like I showed for the tithis. When all the 24 hours are gone, and then again you start with a 1, guess what? That is your next day name. So after Saturday, then Sunday, then Monday, then Tuesday or Mangalwar. Okay. More clearly explained if you look at even Aryabhatiya. Okay, so I will not read the Sanskrit words there, Saptete, Horesha, and whatnot. But what it's saying is, again, the grahas occurring fourth in the order of increasing velocity are the lords of successive days. What did I say? The Horapati becomes the Grahapati, becomes the Dinapati, okay, the day name. But when? Aryabhatiya is saying, which is reckoned at the time of sunrise. So whoever is the Horapati at the time of sunrise, where? In Lanka. Okay, this is the Lanka word is not here, and this is when the Sanskritis might jump in. But Lanka is not there. How can you translate in Lanka? Well, you have to know astronomy and you have to read Aryabhatiya, but not stop there. You have to read Surya Siddhanta and just understand the ancient Indian astronomy, the sophistication of it, including the equatorial nature of it. That's why the Lanka's importance is there. So the Horapati becomes the Dinapati. Whichever is a Horapati at the time of the sunrise in Lanka becomes the Dinapati. But why Lanka? Because remember, we need the stable sunrise times. Okay, so I'm now using the Aryabhatiya to show that instead of using number 1, 2, 3, 4 to 24, I'm saying, let's say 6 o'clock is the morning sunrise time. So we start from there. The Horapati at there is a Shani, and then we go on every hour, the Horapati changes. When we have gone through the same time and get to the next 6 o'clock, next sunrise time, the next day, whoever is the Horapati is going to become a Dinapati. We are going to get that name. So now Sunday, Saturday, now Sunday. Again, you repeat the cycle and you get to Monday, and then you get to Tuesday, the Mars day, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, somebody is going to jump in. Now, guess what? If you're doing a research, guys, this is a lesson to you. When I was doing this research, I did not wait for somebody to find holes in my theory, my proposal. I find the holes. I'm busy, nothing but busy finding holes in my own thesis. Only when I cannot find, I get exhausted and tired, and I cannot find holes in my thesis, and all the evidence is exhausted. I say, okay, here is my claim, here is my theory. Enjoy, critique if you can, okay, and just share that and let the knowledge grow. So somebody is going to say, but Indian astronomy, depending on who is saying it, if it's like, but Indian astronomy divides the day in 30 muhurtas and not in the 24 hours, okay, whatever that appropriate accent. What people don't know is that actually the division of a day is not just division of time, even division of a distance. If you study different ancient Indian narratives, you will see different definitions for different units. For example, in time, there is a unit called Truti. And if you go to different ancient Indian texts, you will find the Truti, the word for time unit, is the same, but its quantitative value changes. The other very familiar for most of you would be yojana. So the word yojana is the same, but how much is quantity is equal to one yojana actually changes. And by the way, same thing for the other big thing that we are really honestly stuck. And I will encourage you to watch my videos on solving the problem of a yuga. The yuga, ancient Indian narratives has 30 plus different definitions of a yuga. Okay, so guys, don't get just stuck on the first thing that you read and say, this is the truth with a great reverence and andhashraddha. Don't do that. So division of the days in 24 parts, but most of the time, if you read even Surya Siddhanta, you're going to see Muhurta is equal to 48 minutes. So 30 parts. So where is the division of a day in 24 parts in ancient India? Well, guess what? If Bhagavad Purana comes to our rescue, and there could be in many other granthas that I'm not aware of, but this is how where I found it, okay, is preserved. Now, how old is Bhagavad Purana? Honestly, we don't know. What we do know is that the last time it appears to be updated is 1300 BCE. Now, this is based on the internal evidence within Bhagavad Purana, and you can read that on my blog. So, what? Say last update, at least a known update, the update that can be tracked is 3000 plus years ago. Okay, but Bhagavad Purana itself can be old. We just don't know. What does it say? It preserves a ancient memory of the day being divided into 24 parts. I mean, I can read this whole thing, but the quick highlighted portion there that's relevant is Laguni vai samam nata dasha panchacha nadika. They start with the smallest unit of time that's relevant to them. You'll be fascinated how small that unit is. That's not a subject today, by the way. And they go all the way to Samvatsara. And then they talk about the five Samvatsara, Samvatsara, Parivatsara, Idavatsara, and so on and so forth. I'll just quickly go fast and show you the highlighted portion. This particular portion of Bhagavad Puran is describing one Muhurta or a unit in such a way that 24 of those units makes one Ahoratra. And that's what is required for this etymology plus the unique sequence of the weekdays. Okay, so 60 minutes is one Muhurta in the context of a Bhagavad Puran. Okay, so keep in mind there are multiple definitions. So just because you hear Truti, Muhurta, Yojana, Yuga does not mean the same quantity. So in Bhagavad Purana, there indeed exists a forgotten memory of times. I say forgotten because we don't know how old is Bhagavad Puran and where did Bhagavad Puran borrow this information from. Borrowed in the sense, placed it from. Okay, for the Ahoratra, but also dividing into 24 horas and not in 30 muhurtas. We got all our 5 points, guys. You bring them together. You understand the logic, you have a sophisticated astronomy, you have an equatorial astronomy, you have the devatas assigned to each tithi, lunar day, so they're like some same thing with the solar day through Aryabhatiya and Surya Siddhanta. You know the sequence, you know how to create this sequence, put it together, the names, and now Krunvanto Vishwarya, now civilize the whole world. Okay, so now that it went around the world. But we are not done. Just one more point before we get into the questions. So yes, check, 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 check. All 5. The last one was a surprise. Surprise to me, guys. I don't know if you felt the surprise. In fact, I had done this around 2006 or so. But that 24-hour thing was bothering me. Do you know how long I had to wait? From 2006. But I said, where is that evidence, Yes, now we know 24 hours, but where is the evidence, documented ancient evidence for in an Indian context, because everything else was only applying to India, for division into 24 parts? And I couldn't find it. I waited until 2012, 2013, 2014. That's when I found it. That's another story. But I mean, how I found it in the Bhagavad Puran. Okay, that would need a knowledge of a yoga and surprises and twist and serendipity and whatnot. But all the 5s are check, 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 and that tells us where the origin. Well, we have not done 2 more things. When could it all have begun? Very fascinating, guys. Okay, don't just go. Okay, it's time to shed the colonial baggage, the Greek baggage, the so-called Babylonians, Sumerians. I mean, that's all humanity, guys. Okay, that's not a problem. In fact, today that's not a subject, the genetics. But if you talk of Babylonians and Sumerians, Babylonians are 2500 BC, Sumerians are 4000, 5000 BC. Those are the time periods assigned by whoever. But if you look at little evidence that exists in Sumerians say in their whatever stuff that is preserved, that they came from the east. Now, what is east of Iraq? Because Babylonia, Syria, Sumerians are nothing but Iraq. And if you go to Mahabharata, okay, Arjuna has gone all the way to Iraq to meet Bhagadatta. And if you go to Valmiki Ramayana, Sugriva is talking of the place of a Bhagadatta, not Bhagadatta, sorry, forgive me. It's talking of the Prag Jyotishpur. Mahabharata also talks of Prag Jyotishpur in the west, okay, and Bhagadatta there. And Valmiki Ramayana is talking of Prag Jyotishpur in the west, okay, when the Vanara party is going in the west direction, the different story. So, how far back we have to go? And is there a evidence again? Now, number of you, those who follow Panchanga for proper good muhurta to start something, hey, here is a gift, okay? Have you heard of a Guru Pushya Yoga? The Guru Pushya Yoga is the one when remember, now you understand how the Thursday Guru Var comes and how the Pushya Nakshatra comes. At the time of sunrise at a given location, if the moon is in the Pushya Nakshatra, we call the Nakshatra of the day is Pushya. And at the time of sunrise, using that big sequence that I showed you, now we know, okay, for that sequence, if it happens to be Guruvar, because the Dinapati at that time, sunrise is what? Guru. So that becomes, sorry, the Horapati, that becomes the Dinapati. We call that Guru Pushya Yoga. So Nakshatra Pushya and Guru are occurring on the same day. The next one, this is not a very rare event, like it will occur a few times in a year. The latest one, the next one is going to come just in 4 days. Maybe you can use this as auspicious time to start studying Surya Siddhanta, start studying Aryabhatiya, start studying Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, whatever you can think of. A great, great thing. But what if I tell you that this Guru Pushya Yoga is described in a text which can be very confidently, using scientific evidence, empirical evidence, can be dated to more than 14,000 years ago, to 12,000 BCE, Valmiki Ramayana. Valmiki Ramayana is saying, Adya Bahya Sriman Yukta Pushyonu Raghava Prochate Brahmane Pradnya Kena Twamasi Durmana. This is Sita discussing, before Rama's scheduled coronation. And in reality, it doesn't happen and they have to go to Vanvas. That's a different story. You can show actually that that was a Guru Pushya Yoga. It was a Thursday and it was a Nakshatra, was a Pushya. Okay, you can match that. So the Guru Pushya Yoga, which has to do with a Nakshatra and a Dinapati, is as old as 14,000 plus years. Okay, we don't know how far back we have to go. Of course, the words Vasara or Divasa also come in the Mahabharata. But the last fascinating thing, and I'm done. Interestingly, pay attention, guys. While Indian astronomers invented the weekday sequence, I showed you the evidence, I showed you the minimum necessary conditions. For themselves, very interesting, they relied on Tithi and Nakshatra. So occasionally you see the references to the days, like I mentioned one from Valmiki Ramayana. But for most part, almost everywhere, almost practically the Vara, or a day in the sense of Shanivar, Raivar, Somvar, Mangalvar are absent in Rigveda, Valmiki Ramayana, Mahabharata. What's the secret of that? So while they relied on Tithi and Nakshatra rather than the weekday names, because why? The answer is because of the precision and accuracy of Nakshatra and a Tithi. Pratyaksha. While the relative assignment of the latter, which is to say the day name, because the day name we understood the sequence. But what is the difference between the Tithi Nakshatra versus the day name? It is this. Today, whatever day it is, Sunday, right? If you want to know what is the Nakshatra and a Tithi, in the morning we could have watched, or whenever we could do, we can watch what is the phase of the moon. That's going to tell me the Tithi. And if I watch the position of the moon, is going to tell me the nakshatra, approximate. Maybe I'll make an error of plus minus one nakshatra, just visual observation. But if you use a panchang, mathematical astronomy, the astronomy simulation, you will know exactly down to precise and accurate answer. What is the tithi? What is the nakshatra? With the days, there is nothing that tells me that today has to be Sunday. It depends on when we call the first day and what was the name of that first day. In that sense, it's a relative. And therefore, in the short term, it may be useful, but in the long term, this is not very useful to accurately timestamp specific historical events. And how thankful we are to the great sages like Vyasa or Valmiki and Kalidasa and many others, that they chose to stamp historical events with a tithi, with a nakshatra, with a planetary positions, planetary conjunction, comets, different star combinations, star positions, so that we can actually look at those ancient texts and decide when actually they happened. So India, although was the originator of a weekday, very interesting. He says, been there, done that. Now, guys, if you want to use it, use it. We are not going to use it, not at least heavily, okay, and definitely not in our important text, especially where the texts are going to be useful for a very long period of time. Okay, now if you want to read more about it, how this evidence fascinating come together, removed from the weekdays, guys, okay, and focusing on only the precise and accurate information such as like the nakshatra, tithi, the star positions, the planetary position, the conjunctions, okay, the eclipses and all that. These are my 3 books. I'm working on my 4th, and very soon I will talk about it. But for now, you can take these books and start on a Guru Pushya Yoga. Start reading them. Okay. There is a Ganesha deal, and what happened just recently, last 3-4 days, in 48 hours, the another print run was completely gone, and so now they are hurrying up to get them printed again. So they have extended the time of this offer, whatever the offer is, until like I don't know, Diwali. I'm just saying it, guys. Don't count me on the word. You can directly contact them to find out. And if you're outside India, of course, Amazon is your choice if you want to read these books. With that, I am done everything on what I wanted to say about the etymology and the peculiar sequence of the weekdays.
My question is what DNA or gutti in our houses mothers give was in our ancestors which we lack and how we can get it back to rise equal to our ancestors.
Thank you. A very broad question. Thank you. I would say what I learned from my guru, or one of my gurus, I should say. If you think of a foundations of the Sanatan Vedic, that is the endurance in conduct. You just don't give up. If you know a problem, and that's going to help humanity, or uh, just the bhuta matra in general, you don't give up. So endurance in conduct. The next one is conviction in absolute morals, which is ahimsa, satya. The satya matters, not just some cooked up jugad. So you are not going to stop halfway because you are tired and just going to pretend that that is the truth. You might say, I don't know the truth. Sometimes you don't know the correct answer, that's fine. And third one is the freedom of thought, which you will not see in, frankly, any other isms. I mean, Hinduism is not ism, of course, that's a word, recent word, Hindutva. But Sanatan Vedic Dharma, the one of the key thing and a very unique thing is the freedom of thought. And as Yaskacharya said, Nirukta, Sanatano Nitya Nutana, it is something that is capable of keeping itself fresh based on a new evidence. It's willing to change. And it's given in a very open, democratic fashion. Like Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says all this thing, and then he says, Yathechasi Tathakuru, leaves it to Arjun. And of course, it's Arjuna's great thing that he says, Karishe Vachanam Tava. So it's a very open architecture. And I think that allowed our sages to do experimentation, fearlessly do experimentation. And what we are seeing is a result of that. Thank you.
Kalidas says that Soumya Din as a Monday, but in traditionally now we can see that Soumya Din as a Wednesday. So that I want to know the difference of that only.
Okay, so just from what you said, if Kalidas ji is saying Soumya Din as Monday, then that is correct, because Soumya comes from a Soma, okay, Somavar, and yes, it is a Monday. Now, then you are saying in the tradition that is taken as some other day, like a Wednesday. I do not know what tradition you're referring to, but even if you tell me the tradition, my answer would be I don't know. You have to go and ask that particular place, or the origin of that particular tradition, even within our tradition. See, there is no one tradition. When we say tradition, what does that mean? Like a agama, agama is an experience of different people. Their different treatises are written, and sometimes they conflict. And then we have to resolve it using Nyaya Darshana, using the logic of scientific method, using the logic of scientific discovery. And we may not be successful always. So Saumya Din equal to Somvar is very correct. So I agree with that. I mean, if Kalidas has written that, um, agree in the sense I understand, and that makes sense. Now, if somebody else is calling by some different names, there must be some reason. I don't know the source, and I don't know who did that, what particular tradition you're talking. So, and I don't know the answer. And that's the other point to remember. It's perfectly okay to say, I don't know the answer.
I have started to read Ramayana now, and so far I have not come across any reference of weekdays per se. And I was reading about it in a couple of articles just to get an idea, and it says that weekday was never a part of um, Indian scripture or Indian book or anything. It only was adopted when the Persian Empire went up to Egypt, and that is when it was adopted. And I think you touched upon it. So, as you have read these scriptures, our Mahakavyas, have you found any reference of it?
Well, I would. So, thank you. Good question, Yashodaji. So, when this talk comes out, you may listen to it again, because I did answer all of those, what you just asked, but I will elaborate again. So you said correctly, or whoever said that, but that person, wherever you read it, it's a half truth. You know what that person, or wherever you read, it says, oh, it was never there and it came from Persia. And you ask them, what's your evidence? And they will say many times, that's their evidence. That's the problem. Well, but there is a partial truth to it, which is to say that, and that's how I ended my presentation today, that even when India, there is a sufficient evidence that India is the place where the weekdays originated, and there is a sufficient reason to believe that it did not originate anywhere else. That is also true, because the 5 conditions must be met. When it came to actually ancient Indian narratives or even epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata, they chose not to use the day. So partial truth is that it is correct that the actual day usage of a day is like Monday or Somvar, Mangalvar, Budhvar, Gurvar, Shukravar, Shanivar doesn't come in the Ramayana. It does not come in the Mahabharata. It doesn't come in the Rigveda. It doesn't come in many other Grantha also. Even the Puranas also, it may not come that much. There may be in some Puranas, because Puranas you can add things. That is the nature of a smruti. You can update. So you can write a Purana today, or you can make an update to Purana today. So you can put Somvar there. But even when it was not used, some stray references have survived. And I shared one reference from Ramayana, where Sitaji is talking about a Guru Pushya Yoga. Okay, which is very interesting. And so that Guru Pushya Yoga we talk in our times, but it was also there in Valmiki Ramayana. And what I have shown, that's a totally different subject, that you can extract all the 600, close to 600 astronomy descriptions of Valmiki Ramayana, and that takes you to 12,209 BCE. That's not it. I mean, if you go to many other disciplines of sciences, like say paleontology, geology, oceanography, climatology, hydrology, like Satluj River, Yamuna River, all that also takes you to that 13th millennium BC. So definitely it was used there. But all that we are left with is just a stray reference. I mean, we are lucky that one reference survived, in the whole 24,000 verses Ramayana, just one line, frankly. And in Mahabharata, almost nothing. And Mahabharata has 125,000. So there is a partial truth to what you heard. The fakery is somebody telling, oh, when the Persian came in contact, that's when the days came. I'm saying this fakery because there is no evidence. And for something to be established, you need the 5 things that I described. No other culture around the world, okay, can claim with evidence that is the case for any of the other civilizations. And some of the great civilization, I mean, I'm studying North American civilization, North and South, from Alaska to Patagonia for last 30 plus years. I've been to Alaska many times, I've been to Patagonia many times, and every place in between. Okay, I'm very fascinated by these civilizations. In fact, they have a connection with India. If you listen to my Sugriva's Atlas, all the way to South America and whatnot. But my point is, even there, at least the evidence that has survived, we don't find any of this sophistication of these 5 things that I mentioned, which is required for the creation, for the etymology, but also the unique sequence of the weekdays that is prevalent around the world. But thank you. Great question you asked.
Do you have any concluding remarks, Nilesh?
Well, all I will repeat is the Guru Pushya Yog is there 4 days from today, okay, on September 30th. And please use this, because see, many times people may not be interested in technical subjects, and I understand why that is so. But if you make it like, muhurta, like people, now I started Bharat Dinadarshika, working with the oldest Panchanga makers of India, Date Panchang, one of the oldest living tradition, I can say. And so it gets updated on Twitter. But then now people say, sir, can you also update with the muhurta? And the muhurta is not very easy to update. Muhurta changes like every muhurta, every hours, right? My point is, just as a fun note, the Guru Pushya Yoga is there on September 30. And of course, in my presentation, I showed some additional remaining dates for the rest of the 2021. Use that as an auspicious moment to start studying something. And many people ask me, where should they begin? I mean, they can begin wherever their fascination is. But if they don't have any reference, Bhagavad Gita is a perfect place to begin the study. And I will encourage everyone, I will request everyone, why not take September 30, the Guru Pushya Yoga, as an auspicious moment to start your study of ancient Indian narratives. If you don't have a specific choice, please start with Bhagavad Gita. Namaskar.